Hello, everyone. Hello, esteemed participants. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. After an insightful and enriching day one of our online conference, PeopleOps Pulse 2023, we are thrilled to welcome you back for another day of learning, sharing, and networking. Participants who didn't get to hear our welcoming message, here it is. PeopleOps Pulse conference has attracted many HR and PeopleOps professionals from all over the world, with close to 800 participants spanning from 65 incredible countries. I am awed by the sheer power of technology that bridges vast oceans and diverse cultures, bringing us together under the banner of human resources. It would be wonderful if you all could enter your full names along with the country from where you all are joining in the chat box. Would love to see the diversity that we have here today. Yesterday's sessions were filled with enlightening discussions, innovative ideas, and shared experiences. We hope that each of you found the sessions as valuable and inspiring as we did. Today, we promise an equally dynamic lineup of speakers and interactive sessions. Let's continue to delve deep into the transformative world of Agile PeopleOps, human resources, bringing together our collective wisdom to shape the future of work. Remember, every moment is an opportunity for growth, and every interaction is a chance to learn. So keep your questions ready, your notes handy, and your mind open. Thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment to excellence. Let's make day two even more remarkable. As I welcome you all for this incredible journey, I would like to request each of you to participate through chat or asking questions in the questions tab. You also have an option to network with other members in the conference platform, and our wonderful support team is happy to answer any questions that you might have. So now, let's welcome our first speaker for today, Aditya Rao, who's going to talk on the topic Designing HR Technology Hyperconvergence for the Workforce of the Future. He's the Senior Manager of Cognizant Technology Solutions Enterprise Process Consulting HCM. He leads the HR Product Center of Excellence for Fortune 200 enterprises and provides thought leadership on human capital and talent systems to deliver domain-first HR IT solutions. Welcome, Aditya. The stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. Before I get started, everyone, just let me know if my voice is audible and can you see my screen? Marianne, if you can see, we can get started. Awesome. So, let me just, start by saying that what I'm going to share right now will be more important than who I am. And I do this from a standpoint of humility because this is what essentially HR technology, etc., that we're going to talk about is all about. So why this topic? I mean, if you ask me, I was kind of thinking that, should I talk about this complex topic like designing HR technology, hyper governance for the workforce of the future, which is a mouthful. And here is the reason why, because I really wanted to deconstruct the theme. And this is high time, this should be spoken about, because if you look at the theme itself, the designing HR technology, hypergovernance, and the workforce of the future, which essentially comes with the Agile PeopleOps construct. And this is, I have taken as the starting base. So what do we see here on screen right now is, the Agile PeopleOps manifesto, the human-centered design, the employee experience. We are talking about experience here. So which means that the talent of the future, we should be talking about, we should be having the design skills, we should be well versed about the HR technology, not the technologists themselves, but it's very important to know about the constructs of HR technology. Finally, what is hyperconvergence and how this is happening? Of course, this is happening all across us. I mean, if you look at how you interact with technology. There was a day when we started with computer, those of us who kind of have started at least 15, 20 years back. So we started in the operating system, the Windows was everywhere. Before that, it was DOS and 3.11, then Windows 95, 98, 2000. Now it is, we have seen the influx of social, you know Facebook and everything, mobility everywhere, uh, and cloud analytics and all that. I mean, who knows what future basically holds for us. So if you look at, if we deconstruct the theme in understanding, we are essentially talking about personas because it is a productization. The Agile PeopleOps team, when the moment we are adding this word agile into HR, this essentially becomes a construct of productization. So in the productization, what I really mean is that these are the themes in which we subconsciously talk about. For instance, a persona, how well designed and well defined it is. Do we have a target enterprise process to support the persona? And finally, is it a domain first solution? So what do I mean? Let's say if you're a recruiter, so in your given area of expertise, in your given domain vertical, is the persona, are we thoughtful as HR professionals? Have we thought about these personas? Is my enterprise process, which is recruiting, hiring, onboarding, and what happens when the person actually joins? Is there a buddy or mentorship program? What kind of experience are we providing? uh, I mean, we all are aware that the world has moved into a certain area where experience basically shadows everything. No matter how sophisticated technology we have, the sophisticated HR systems and processes, people do remember how we made them feel in any domain. So of course, how do we do that? Through iterative value, and we kind of test it, and then we scale it up for the entire organization. Performance is very important, but the bottom line always stays that it has to be a pleasant and a holistic experience. So when we say holistic experience, that is all it counts. And finally, unless we can provide the holistic experience in HR function, it's impossible to drive the human performance excellence. Because, and that is where the domain of coaching, and especially the empathic coaching, comes into play. I'm not going to delve much deeper into the coaching. I just touched it upon, because Agile People Ops, we have other eminent speakers who will be kind of covering the coaching domains. Let us dive into the hyperconvergence. So once we talk about the hyperconvergence, this is the theme in which this particular keynote is more concentrated upon. So let me start with employee experience driven and talent engagement focused ecosystem. So employee experience, once we speak about employee experience driven technology, I would like your attention on evolution of the HR function first, the highlighted part in the yellow. So this is essentially it's an oversimplification, and I apologize for that. I really wanted a few talking points before I dive deeper into employee experience, because if you look at it, this is how we started in HR function. So we started handling labor tensions and legal compliances, etc., especially in the industrial relations world. And also, there is a little scoping here. The scope of this presentation is probably more useful in non-labor relation related environment, where you have wider scope of designing the employee experience. If you do not have scope for doing that, for instance, if you're dealing with the legal compliances and everything, you have a limited scope, but there is a scope nonetheless. Second is from labor tensions and legal compliances, probably 1910, 1920s, and I'm talking about at a global scale, we moved into the managerial function. The HR became in charge of recruitment, training, compensation, and benefits. That's it. These are the four pillars that, more or less, that we do even today. The third is strategic business partnering. So strategic business partnering is more, I would say, came into existence during the era of globalization. And since then, there are various constructs of this across the globe. So my question, or rather food for thought, is where do we go from here? What's next? So in the construct of employee experience driven, employee experience is often kind of denoted as EX. So there is digital experience, and the subset of digital experience, rather a subdomain in itself, is an employee experience design. So my emphasis on the question here is that, is our employee experience is Is it talent engagement focused? So all words, I really try to choose my words really carefully. So I am kind of highlighting talent, not just talent, but talent engagement focus. And are we talking about a holistic ecosystem? So there is an elegance, there is a balance. So I mean, employee experience driven design, we are talking about attracting top talent, onboarding and integration, I mean, which is essentially the fundamental aspect of any HR function. Then how do we align organizational values and culture? How our employees interact with the culture? How they kind of uh, imbibe the culture themselves, rather than you push those values into the employees by way of compliances. Continuous learning and development, employee well-being and work-life balance. We are aware about it. There are a lot of talks happening on these lines. Career growth advancement, recognition, reward, communication, feedback, meaningful work and autonomy, employee voice and empowerment. The last is where the real development and growth. There is a huge scope for designing here. The first are, I would say, more traditional, if primitive is not the right word, the more traditional functions of HR, the meaningful work and autonomy, employee voice and empowerment. This is where the scope of employee experience design matters. And what's really important also, and that I wanted to talk about, the last thing on this slide, is about an ecosystem. So none of these functions can actually work in silo. For instance, if you're talking about total reward, so total reward is basically a performance, compensation, benefits, payroll. So this particular ecosystem, you cannot usually have an organization where you have a very, very strong total reward ecosystem, but a pretty poor talent acquisition system. It usually doesn't happen. So I mean, first is the natural evolution, the organic evolution. The second is by intent. I mean, how you as an HR professional uh, is trying to kind of create this ecosystem. So it fits really well within your given construct of HR technology. Moving on to experience advocacy. So experience advocacy is a word which is pretty dominant in customer relationship aspects, especially, I mean, if you have seen a very good advertisement, a very good app design where you would like to buy something, for instance Amazon, for instance Google, if you're searching something. So Google is known for simplification of the design, where people would rather love to use their products, and there are so many examples. So on the left that you see, this is the usual agile path, which we take in almost all the product development lifecycle. First, we try and understand, then we define it, then we ideate. In other words, we design it, design ideation, then the prototyping happens. Finally, we test and deploy. So this is usually how the technology, path is taken. But I see a challenge, and when I say that I see a challenge, I am speaking from a professional perspective, where I, as an employee, um, rather, I'm an HR professional. So I started my career as an HR professional into HR business partnering, human resource business partnering. From there, I've moved into HR Center of Excellences. From there, I've moved into the consulting, people analytics, and so on and so forth. So I kind of see where the conflict is. So the very intent of this keynote address, especially that I wanted to share with all of you, if there is one thought, I really, pardon me, the one thought that I really wanted to share with you is that I really do not expect you to understand how technology works. That's not the intent. My engagement here with you is on just one point. Are you doing, experience advocacy for whichever subdomain areas of HR you're working? For instance, if you're a training manager or if you're a recruiting manager, is your solution domain first? So these are a few areas. For instance, when we are talking about agility, especially the Agile PeopleOps, so Agile PeopleOps is championing a lot of areas. I've just highlighted a few of them, which I really loved, which is very close to my heart. This is in no way this is exhaustive. So productization in HR domain, this is inevitable. This is happening everywhere. The design should be iterative. It should be a tailored talent engagement initiative, which means that just now when I was talking about that, within your subdomain, how contextualized this is. Building leadership support, and employee advocacy. Finally, you monitor and scale up. That's just our mean the HR's interpretation of this development cycle, software development, a software testing life cycle, whichever life cycle you're involved with. This should be our interpretation. So if you look at it, these are the factors in which experience advocacy basically depends upon. For instance, leadership and organizational culture is an extremely important part. uh, Employee engagement and recognition is very important. The only one part that I've highlighted here is the technology and infrastructure. This is one area in which we do not have a traditional uh, HR and IT kind of a collaboration or a partnership, and that is the area, that is the, I would say, sweet spot on which this keynote address I'd like to kind of share with you. So technology and infrastructure, there is there is a huge scope for collaboration. A lot of work is actually happening in Agile PeopleOps. There will be a series of white papers. I would request you to kind of keep an eye, do collaborate on that. Uh, Now, in technology and infrastructure also, the thing in which I'm kind of highlighting is it requires a shift in the mindset in the HR professionals. For instance, right now what's happening is that a certain piece of technology is given to HR, and that's it. I mean, we just take it. It could be a SaaS product, cloud based application. It could be an offline product. It could even be an Excel. It doesn't matter. But it is something which is dictated to HR traditionally, rather than HR is kind of taking a lead in co-designing. So my emphasis isn't co-design domain led solution. A classic example that I'd like to give here is statistics and data sciences. For instance, if you look at statistics in general as a subject, it really doesn't mean much unless you merge it with a certain domain. I mean, statistics of what? Statistics of, let's say, world population, statistics in sociology, statistics in psychology. Then, it gives a meaning to statistics. Similarly, when you kind of look at the generic technology per se, it really is meaningless. So as an HR partner, is HR business partner, HR center of excellences, HR directors, whichever role you are playing into, you should be kind of looking into the domain-led solution. And this domain-led is essentially your contextualization. If it's recruitment-led solutions. So as a recruiter, you should be empowered enough to co-design the solution, that you should be able to, kind of design and define. So this arrow is where I think there is a problem, and this is what you can fix. So when in the ideation phase, probably between the define and the ideate phase, this is where your role would be extremely crucial in ownership in holistic enterprise process design. This is how I'd like to put it. So it's not just your sub process. For instance, recruiting. If there is something broken in recruiting, if it's not really giving an ideal experience, and I can kind of elaborate a little bit. So there is a certain firm, without taking its name. Usually what happens in Canada, if you are applying for a job, the firm takes inordinate long time to even let the employee know whether they are in or they are out. So it's really difficult, because it takes up to 6 months, which is a very, very long time for any recruitment process. There is essentially, there is a black box. This is one of the better management consulting firms, which is totally unexpected, but this happens. So if there is a gap, meaning people are not even touching base with the employee, if the firm is not really willing to let their candidates know that whether you are selected or rejected, whether we are moving in a really nice and pleasant and cohesive manner, then everything else fails, because that's where we are not really able to provide the design. So HR technology will be able to deliver the experience, but as HR partners, you need to co-design the solution. You need to you know, tell them that this is where the problem is. This is where I'm kind of seeking a solution, and that's where a lot of Agile PeopleOps tools are really handy. All right, so this is the third construct, the persona of future. That is the important theme of this topic. So I would like you to kind of imagine within your geography, within your domain, within your industry in which you are serving. So what is your persona of the workforce of future? So in my humble experience, so far. So the persona of the workforce, I mean, forget about the their ethnicity or the geography or their experience. In general, I'm talking about globally. Usually the workforce of the future is known as the knowledge workers. In whichever domain they are working, they're multi-talented individuals. They really would like to work in an ethical organization meaning good by intention, not just good as in they publish some flyers and nobody looks at those flyers. Quite honestly, it really is important to know that how soulful those organizations are, and this is becoming increasingly important for the young workforce, because the choice is much more for you to select a certain domain and certain work. Mindful communication, seamless collaboration. So these are the highlighted areas that I would like to kind of focus on: productivity, freedom, engagement, and balanced fulcrum. So of course there should be a productivity, there should be freedom, and there is an engagement. Not just, you cannot expect this knowledge worker to engage when there is near zero support from the organization, right? So probably we all are facing in our day-to-day life also. So it has to be a balanced fulcrum, and this is a science and art, both. Of course there is a natural communication, organic, where you can speak in a psychologically safe environment, where you can kind of share your frustration. If you're frustrated, yeah, you need not be diplomatic all the time, but is your organization supporting? If not, then what needs to be done? Of course there is a mental health and well-being. It should be integrated by design, so which means that not just for talking points, but how serious an organization is when they're talking about mental health and well-being. On the right side, what you see is the persona design, how you can help. So of course I mean, unless you are into HRIT, if you specialize into HR technology, I really do not expect you to kind of be a well versed into all these areas. So I have kind of done a hyper personalization for HR. So it persona prospecting in HCM, it should start with your data and hypothesis, and it need not be like a really complicated statistics. You can start by just seeking, hey, what your persona means, kind of a person, kind of an idea of a person who would be your end product, who should be using your end product, what this person likes, dislikes, what they need, what they value, right? So in the HCM areas, in within your HCM human capital management areas, what are the challenges? For instance, in a learning and development space, the problems could be your persona is a knowledge worker, someone who just passed out from the university. They are clueless what career to take. Is there any course? Which course? How to take it? Right? So there are courses they cannot enroll. The application is really old, maybe flash based, I don't know. Some of the challenges you can talk about. How do you overcome, or how do they overcome, right? Then when you with from prospecting to constructing HRHC personas, you need to kind of look into the finer details, their typical age, gender, what drives them, the psychological state of mind, from which strata of workforce they are kind of transitioning into your area, right? What is the emotional state of being? Then you qualify that with your HCM domain, which meaning that whatever you understood through your hypothesis, is it really meeting? Is it really meeting your situation? Of course, we are talking about a lot of best practices here. So all these best practices, are they qualifying within your experience? Then you can add value by co-designing. So the last steps is where you will partner more actively with your HRIT professionals or the technology organization within your practice. So add value by co-designing. How do you co-design all these things? So to co-design, you need to have some fundamentals ready. So agile thought process, agile HR thought process, agile PeopleOps will ready you for all these values. So follow through on promise, which is extremely important, because especially I can talk about employee listening. Sometimes we do surveys, sometimes we ask, hey, what's bad me in my organization, what's not working? But the challenge is what happens if nothing happens, if you never communicate back to your targeted group, if you don't tell them that here is the challenge, this is what we are doing, this is the roadmap. then the employee listening actually loses the relevance. I think many of you might agree with me on that. So, anyways, moving on. These are some of the strategies which I found, as best practices, and also like to kind of share what really works for me as a consulting, agile servant leader in various organizations, right? So first is your HR subsystem aligned with your larger HRIT ecosystem, meaning that there might be a certain best practice that you're kind of advocating. You really need to be mindful on what's going on. I mean, the intent of this is kind of, if I may use the word, very gently nudging my HR, friends to think about the technology, the state of technology. What is your larger organizational goal? What are we trying to achieve here, right? So, are we involving the employees in the design process? So these are the questions we should be asking ourselves, because typically what happens, and this is a common theme, a common challenge which I have seen in many organizations. Typically what happens is that the end users of the systems are hardly involved in the process. So you cannot do that. We cannot do that anymore, right? So my there is I'm also referencing this white paper. If you haven't, please, how to design hybrid workplace experience. I have kind of spoken in detail about this. It is a published white paper through Agile PeopleOps. If you haven't, please, have a look. So let me also be a little mindful about time, because it's a huge topic. So I'm kind of doing a little bit time check here. So what really is important here is not the technological, I would say, constructs here. What is more important is that we need to be mindful on where are we focusing, which is we have to be delivering our work while we kind of elevate the quality of our services, elevate the experience, etc. So which means that we need to really be thinking about where are we kind of putting our time. So it should be a very reasonable time spirit, in the spirit of the agile, and then the entire fulcrum of HR and technology. And finally, the daily stand up. So we need to master the art of daily stand up, and kind of, if we say that we are kind of co-owning, or at least if it's domain-led solution, a recruiter should be kind of designing the system from a functional perspective, and the technology should follow, which means that you should be a champion of a daily stand-up. Unless you do that, it's extremely difficult. And there are a few things that I really wanted you to be mindful of, and quite honestly, this is a no-brainer. So my approach here is that you sometimes need to learn to say no with confidence, which means that if something is not working, it is not working. Just for the sake of it, sometimes there is a tendency that HR is being pushed that, why don't you try it out? This is the best of class. Yeah, maybe the system is out of the class, but sometimes what happens is that because HR is so engrossed with the functional processes, we kind of take it at the face value. So this is where I'm requesting you to be a little mindful. Keep asking, what does this mean for me? While I understand what you're saying, this is the great technology, people analytics, cloud, SaaS, everything. Please explain in simple words, what would it do for my employees, for HR Center of Excellence, for my leaders, for my managers, for my contingent workforce, for my vendors, etc., etc. Whoever are the stakeholders. So I call it the elegance of I don't know. What I don't know, right? So once you start with I don't know, it opens a possibility to know more, and this is a responsibility of HR technology to make you understand. Now we are moving into the emphasis on the well-being and resilience. So let me take a pause here, because I have chosen my font size also a little mindfully. So emphasis on well-being and resilience is actually well established. We do not need this kind of research. Again, I'm kind of referencing some white paper which is published by APO. So there are a lot of research, but quite honestly, you do not need research to understand we have stress in the workplace, right? But what's important is that, do we have an emphasis by intent. By intent means your intention comes first. Purity of your intention comes first. Everything else is secondary. So this is something I think a lot of ground will be covered during the coaching sessions. That's why I was kind of really inclined to talk about hyperconvergence, because hyperconvergence is also a state of mind where agility in HR by intention, by coaching, the physical and the spiritual dimensions, everything is kind of merging. So let's talk. Designing well-being and resilience for the future of workforce persona. When you're talking about the future of workforce persona, typically what happens is that, I mean, there are a couple, I would say, complementary, not contradictory models which we have. The first is the well-known Maslow's hierarchy. So Maslow's hierarchy, and there is a chakra system, which is Indian psychology. So if you look, or if you kind of try to draw a parallel into all of that, here is my perspective, which is kind of an oversimplification for the matter of this keynote address. There are certain foundational or the essential systems, then there are developmental systems, and finally there are performance excellence. So if you look at, or if you design the physical safety, the psychological safety, and the rightful accommodation, what we call in HR, these are the foundational systems. I mean, if your employees cannot survive in the ecosystem, I mean, let's forget about experience, right? So this is well understood. Then we move into the developmental cycle, where increasingly there is an emphasis on career and not jobs. You talk about the fluid workforce, you talk about I would say the gig economy, whatever it is. The gig economy is also not, it's not some haphazard patternless thing. Even in the gig economy, the knowledge worker is seeking for a career, right? They don't do odd jobs. One day you do some coding, the other day you kind of design compensation. It doesn't work that way. So of course there is a career, not job. And finally, the community belongingness, emotionally invested. So community belongingness, the emotionally invested, these are the areas where a lot of organizations are not really doing well. And that is where platforms like Agile PeopleOps, I think Agile PeopleOps is the only platform that is bringing the HR and agility together. And that's why I applaud their efforts in this space, which is extremely important. And why this is important also, let me share my perspectives, being in the you know mm, workforce for close to a couple decades now. So usually what happens, I am leading a certain team of really talented professionals across globe. But if I need to talk to someone who is in the same boat as me, I really don't have a reference point within my own organization. But what happens if I connect with Agile PeopleOps? There is a possibility that someone like me in the same shoes, they can show some empathy. They can share their thoughts and everything, which is beyond what Agile PeopleOps is doing. I would say a little soft proposition here, which is not really a framework, but which is equally important if you're really serious about your developmental aspect for yourself and for your employees. And finally, the domain of performance excellence. Performance excellence is a domain, again, let me keep saying this. This is a domain of coaching. So when it becomes a coaching domain, if you look at, if you compare the Maslow's and the in the Indian psychology, the systems of chakra, there are explored dimensions, which is foundational, partly developmental, or if you kind of would like IT equivalents. I mean, one is a hardware, other is a software. Between hardware and software lives somewhere the middleware. You cannot really touch the software, and that's the beauty of software. But without software, your hardware is of no use. Imagine a cell phone that doesn't have any power, right? That doesn't have any software. So when you're talking about performance excellence, it actually goes to maybe the pinnacle or even beyond the pinnacle of what Maslow had written in this model. So purpose of being, and the work becomes a reward in itself. So this is an extremely I would say state in your work life. And I don't have any statistics what's the percentage, but I'm guessing a very few member in the workforce are really can achieve this. Once this happens, you move away from the Pavlovian model of conditioning and all that reward, and recognition doesn't really work on this particular workforce, because they work for the sake of it, for the enjoyment. The work itself is, delivering, the reward. So this is the ultimate intention of hyperconvergence. And with that, let me talk about a few themes in the workplace on the mental health support. So mental health, there is a lot of talks happening all across the globe. We all know what the situation is. So mostly we have mental health support. This is what I'm actually saying in the benefit packages, etc., what the different firms are kind of providing. And just one distinction, no one firm can actually provide all these services. So this is a collation from my experience, without taking the name of the Fortune 100, 200 clients. This is what is being provided: awareness and education, accessible counseling services, stress reduction strategies, workforce management, all that. And why I'm kind of providing this, it doesn't matter, you don't really have to be a Fortune 200 firm to provide these services. And that's where the mindful HR comes into play. Awareness and education, this really is not that complex to provide, and that's where the intent comes first. So health and wellness programs, fostering a positive workplace culture. In the interest of time, let me move a little faster here because I have a lot of ground to cover. So yeah, inclusion and diversity, this is one topic in which I really wanted to talk about. So inclusion and diversity, let's not do that just for the metrics, right? If the intent is not there, uh, it is not really effective. So I'm also referencing a design thinking primer. If you would like to design something, how do you go about it? This is an Agile PeopleOps white paper in the this is one page that I just highlighted. So you will start with emphasis and sponsor buy-in, and finally deployment and continuous adoption. It is a process. Again, this is less agile, because you have to be really careful on how do you do the change management and everything. So this is, I just provided for the food for your thoughts. Now, I would like to take a pause here. I really want you to read all these questions. This is not in any particular order. So it's a quick self-assessment for you. Maybe take some time and answer for yourself. Is most of the answers are in yes or in no? And you don't need to do it right now. I will leave this PDF for you so you can refer it later. So my emphasis here is that there are several spectrums of how you can create a self-managing ecosystem. So first of all, employee listening. Are we doing it for the sake of it, or is there active listening happening? Is there an informal system where an employee is empowered and they can come and they can trust the HR? They can trust the HR point contact and say that I don't trust my manager, but I trust you. I don't trust this firm, but I trust you. That at least you will listen. I know you can't do much given the state of affairs, but I know you will listen. Are we in this state? That is where HR empathy comes in. Finally, HR empathy will drive leadership empathy. From there, we can go to organization level, culture training. And culture training, or the coaching culture, the emphasis here is self-managing ecosystem. You design a beautiful ecosystem where everybody can thrive, but if the fundamentals are not clear, then it becomes difficult in this journey, right? So I have used an I would say representation Chandrayaan, which has been talked about in various media. So with limited resources, what a certain country has achieved this feat. So I have just used that. We can do that. The thing is, this is a journey of empathy. If you ask me, technology comes secondary. The domain-led solution comes first. Now, these are a few things that I really wanted you to leave with, and these are really the foundational platforms. The first is leadership empathy. There should be a budget, for you to work on that. When I say budget, it need not be a certain currency value that, okay, you have X dollars or X rupees for you to kind of come and work on these areas. When I say leadership empathy, it should also be an alliance for you as an HR partner who is serving the firm to actually think on these lines. Do they at least align with you? So that's where leadership empathy comes in. And finally, truthful engagement. These are the first two pillars. Truthful engagement, we already I've just talked about. Are we doing it just for the metrics and then forget about it? So that is something we need to be mindful. Self-driven learning, this is a very, very important aspect. Sometimes what happens, from HR, and I used to do that also, I will accept this in this forum, that for the sake of compliance, have you taken this training, have you done that, etc. But it should be a self-driven as in that we need to kind of gently nudge our the talent, and we can tell them, this is really important, and you're not really talent engagement is a great example. For instance, I used to do a lot of talent engagement, hands-on, and I used to be a career coach, and I'm actually a professional career coach, performance coach. So usually what happens, someone passes the campus and they come to us. They just say that, hey, I'm a Java developer, but I would like to be in ERP. So how do you use this self-driven learning mechanism for them? You actually drive them, you push them that, all right, these are the courses. So if you complete all this self-certification, you will empower me so that I can advocate you that here is a great candidate. Why don't you just, check his fitment for the, ERP system? So that's where self-driven culture comes in. And coaching culture, I'll not touch this part. Moving on to the evolving role of HR as the custodian of the framework. So this is some serious technology talk that I'm kind of trying to do as a monologue. And why I say monologue, because quite honestly, unless you are from HR technology, I do not expect you to be experts in this. So I will just request you to be mindful, be aware of what's coming. So I will start with evolution of HR functions. So I just touch that: handling labor tensions, legal compliances, managerial functions and stuff, strategic business partnering. What's next? So here is what's next. So traditional HR function. So whatever is happening in the HR, in the hyperconverging human AI world. So we have spoken about the human and the artificial intelligence world. So in reality, what's happening? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, data sciences, and etc. Everything is being taken care by the technocrats. But what about the human side of it? If not HR, then who is going to take care of the ethical guardrails and human-centric design? So HR is literally the custodian of the human side of human-centric design. The second thought is transformative potential of HR. AI processes, for instance, how you write the job descriptions and everything. AI can actually be a very good servant or a disaster. So because there is something called AI hallucination. AI hallucination because AI is an artificial intelligence. I think the better word would be synthetic intelligence. This is not intelligence per se. These are pattern recognitions. These are ways where machine is kind of helping assist you with doing something, but there has to be a very strong um, governance by the functional side of HR, be it in talent acquisition, performance management, engagement, well-being, analytics, decision making, whatever it. So I've just highlighted a few things. And the challenges and opportunities for the HR function here is that, we like it or not, we have to adopt to the technological disruptions. The cell phone came and the apps are on cell phone. Now HR is kind of checking that, hey, even after your work time, sometimes you check your messages, you respond to employees and do everything. We don't know what's happening tomorrow, right? So upskilling is extremely important. When I say upskilling, not expertise but awareness, redefining the employee experience. That should be the the I would say emphasis area here. Strategic shift is that human AI partnership and collaboration. How do you collaborate with the technology? Unless you have the data literacy, the analytics driven HR, and the culture of innovation and adaptability. Why I say culture of innovation and adaptability? Because it's agile, it's an iterative. And if you do not have the agility in your mindset, if you are not agile experts, if you are not agile HR experts, how can we expect you to do justice with the expectation that you will kind of maintain a culture of innovation in whatever you do? And enterprise chat technology is the enabler platform. This is the final and the last block of this presentation. So, and I will make it fast here. So making sense of hyperconvergence and why this is important. I mean, these are buzzwords, quite honestly, and I'm saying this as a technologist myself who started as an HR, so I'm a HR IT guy. But do ask, what does this mean for me? What is the nature of HR tech hyperconvergence in my own context as a recruiter, as a training manager, as a performance partner, as a compensation partner? What does this mean to me? If I'm a HR business partner, how do I measure the impact and the efficiency and productivity, data and decision, etc., etc.? So how should I measure the impact? If somebody is promising me, somebody from technology is telling me, hey, adopt this AI, this will kind of do wonders. So let's talk. Let's talk. I just leave it for your read. So there are the known challenges, there are legacy systems, and how do you integrate with the SaaS and the data security and the privacy concerns. I really do not expect you, and that's the thing, because sometimes what happens, we sometimes get really disengaged when we see that, oh, this is technology, this is nothing to do with HR. That's not true. When we are talking about productization, it is our responsibility to be aware of what are the known challenges. Legacy system integration, what does this even mean? If a legacy system is there within your payroll system and someone comes and says that, hey, here is the product, the problem is that the technologist will go away after a go live and implementation, and they will kind of um, be behind the help desk. It is you, HR, who will be held responsible for maintaining that experience. So design considerations, strategic planning alignment, etc., which is again Agile PeopleOps domain. So I'll leave it here. Feature implication and emerging trends. So I've just provided, and by the way, in almost all the slides, I've provided a few references. There are APU white papers, etc. So I would request you to kind of go through them if you are interested. So a very nice partner of mine, he has spoken about an ebook which is their product and delivery practices for HR professionals. So that's a great fundamental start, and I wholeheartedly recommend this book, ebook which is there, if you would be interested. This is how it benefits. I mean, traditionally we start with the with a selling proposition that, hey, what is in it in for me? So, but I wanted to keep it last because I really wanted to talk about the core construct. So whatever you do, you can read it later. So embracing technology-driven talent acquisition, learning and development, engaging and retaining the future workforce, data-driven performance management, empowering HR with analytics and predictive insights. These are the game changers of future. So you can kind of read through these trends from various sources. I would like to kind of highlight more on this particular slide, that how do I partner as an HR? Well, I know, okay, fine, a lot is happening. So design considerations, when the design consideration is happening on the data integration, privacy, security, scalability, etc. So the role of HR is create conditions for success, which is ask questions that, okay, I do not understand when you say scalability. Can you kind of demystify what does scalability mean? I have this business group, I have that business group, and how will it help me? So expect them to kind of break it down into functional pieces. How does it help you? Implementation strategy and best practices during this phase. The collaboration would be the key when the need assessment happens or vendor selection process happens, and make sure that when the vendor selection process happens, when the change management happens, ongoing optimization decisions are being taken, your questions as HR counterparts are actually finds a place in the vendor questionnaire. Implication of the workforce. Now this is in your domain. So while you are kind of working on a productization, etc., what does your enterprise HR process looks like? Because this is the way, or this is the right time to actually rethink your enterprise HR process in one go. If you want to tweak it, this is the time. And the future direction, of course, you can proactively engage if you're sensing something is happening. So for instance, application of artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc., or there are a few, I would say, magical or crazy, depending on your perspective, ideas which are there. So these are some of the things that I wanted to just share for your read. So if you think a trend is coming, it's important for you to be proactive into all those areas. And the intent here is that, because we were talking about the intent, we are creating a workplace ecosystem that fosters collaboration, productivity, employee well-being. So there is a physical construct, technological construct, but the most important here, cultural and social, of course. But it must be a domain-led, holistic approach to workforce design. And when I say holistic, it actually, involves coaching dimension. So I believe we do not have time to go through a lot of details, and I apologize because I may have overstretched a few areas, but I'll leave this. And I encourage you to, engage with me. I'll leave my LinkedIn information. So there are, when you talk about designing a workplace ecosystem, subsystem emphasis here is on physical subsystem. How do you design the space planning, ergonomics, biophilic design, sustainability, etc., etc., privacy and personalization. There are work needs that requires you to kind of, you need to give your worker a little privacy, so that they can deliver their best. Then there is non-physical ecosystem, which is a cultural factor, social dynamics, collaboration spaces, social spaces, etc., etc. So when you design the system, what are the things? This is, I just meant, and there will be a white paper on this particular area from Agile PeopleOps. So keep looking, watching the space for more. Uh, Now, my final thought here is that, and I really want you to, if you ask me, if what is that one thing that I really want you to, as a takeaway from this keynote, is that the future of HR is the hyperconvergence catalyst. And when I say hyperconvergence catalyst, so it is a transformation that essentially happens. And here I have kept some notes. Basically, is that, I mean, there is a foundational system which is a physical in nature. There is a emotional construct, because we are talking about the experience. And unless you have the heart to heart connect with your employee, with your stakeholders, unless there is a genuineness in intent, everything will fall apart. And that is why the agile movement, the agile HR, or anything in agility is so successful, because we're thinking of our you know of our users, or the end users of the product. But HR is very special, because HR is not just a product. You are actually also providing some emotion there. So what I have written here is that there should not be a mindless adoption of a product. How you can marry the brain and the heart together, and that will be the role of the hyperconvergence catalyst as the future of HR. The HR as we see, the HR as we know, probably will be very different 10 years from now. So final thought is on enabling human potential excellence through coaching. Coaching is a vast domain. So that's I really wanted to leave this thought with you. That's where the hyperconvergence comes in. So hyperconvergence just not mean the HR and technology. It is also HR, technology, coaching, the mindfulness, the data culture, seamless adoption, etc., design skills. So that is where the future lies. With that, let me I think I have taken most of your time, and I apologize if there is not much time for question and answer. But having said that, I would love to share my, I would love to listen to your questions if we can take, or I would seek your suggestion on what kind of white papers are in the collaboration that you would like to see. Mariana, over to you.
Everybody, you can use the chat box or the questions tab to ask any questions to Aditya. So while we wait for everybody's questions, I'll move ahead. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aditya, for the great session. It was such a pleasure listening to you speak on the topic designing HR technology, hyperconvergence for the workforce of the future. And wow, I didn't realize how fast people operations is changing in terms of technology. There is so much to learn about it. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mariana. I will just start by saying that I really Uh, I was humbled because this is such a wonderful platform. The one thing is that because there was no questions, I was thinking that either it is too good or too bad, one of these. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to actually meet with you because probably I'll be traveling to some of your nations in geography. So here is my LinkedIn, and if you would like me to kind of collaborate on any future topic, etc., in terms of you know writing something with you, I'm really open for you. Thank you. It was really amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Aditya.
Bye.
Our next session topic is how to have impactful and meaningful coaching conversations, which is at 10 a.m. EST. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again. Just stay on the same screen from where you have logged in, and once the next session is broadcasted, you should be automatically in. A feedback form will pop up right after this session. Would request everyone to give their feedback. Thank you.